Hello, and thank you for joining today's webinar, In the News Part 1. My name is Sierra Martinez, and I'm Logarithm's Digital Marketing Specialist. I'm going to pass things over to your speakers today, Jake Haldeman and Mike Villavicencio, in just a minute. But first, I have a few housekeeping items I want to run through. So there are a couple of things for you to keep in mind throughout the broadcast. First, everyone is muted to ensure audio quality. With that said, we're here to answer any questions that you have. So if there's anything you'd like to ask our panelists related to today's topics, please feel free to send questions through the chat feature at any time. We built in time specifically for Q&A at the end of the presentation. We've estimated about 30 minutes to an hour of content, closer to the 30 side. So stay tuned until the end to get most out of the session and fill out our polls to receive free exclusive content. Now it's time to meet your panelists. So our agenda today is pretty straightforward. We're going to turn it over to Logarithm channel sales engineers, who will dive into two recent security news topics: the Lapsus breach on Okta and Russian hackers targeting U.S. critical infrastructure. Our speakers will share insights and take your most pressing questions at the end. And with that, I'll pass it over to your speakers. Jake and Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Sierra.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you.
Mike, do you want to introduce yourself to get things started?
Yeah, it looks like I'm on the left of the screen there, so I guess I'll go first here. So thank you, everyone, for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, if you're across the seas here. My name is Mike Villavicencio, long last name, I know, but it's pretty simple once you silence the L's. I am one of the channel sales engineers over in the New England area, downtown Boston. I have been with the Logarithm for about 2 years, almost 2 years, coming up in June. And before I was in the channel, I was with the field team supporting sales reps here in New England. And a bit about my background, where I came from, my technical prowess. Really started my career in IT and then getting into cybersecurity with AT&T Wi-Fi services. Ran through about 4 years there at the senior NOC, or Network Operations Center. Learned a lot about various technologies, Linux, Cisco routers, switches, security, firewalls, you name it. A great place to be, learned a lot. Moved over to security with Tipping Point, learning the IDS and IPS in and out, tier 2 support. I got a taste for sales. That's when I started back in 2014. And then I got into the sales engineering role officially for the last 7-8 years. And present day, I'm at Logarithm. Jake, I'll let you take the next part.
Awesome. It's quite a history, Mike, that you have. And I'll just throw out, Mike, I don't know if taking the L's out makes your last name any easier to say, but I appreciate the tip.
A little bit of a tip, sure.
Yeah. Cool. So to introduce myself a little bit, I've been at Logarithm for 6 years, almost 6 years, this in a couple of months. Prior to that, I have worked as a network engineer, systems administrator, and consultant type of roles. As well as with like background in computer science and things like that. It's made it really easy for me to transition from the systems and networking side over to the security engineering. And I've been heavily focused on that the last several years, trying to get a better understanding of the advanced and the simple ideas of what security can mean and do. And, at the end of the day, it's something. It's kind of like a natural progression. As you master server administration and things like that, it's easy to move to the next step of how do you secure it? How do you protect it? How do you make it accessible while still maintaining those security controls, things like that. So it's been a really fun ride, and absolutely love being able to spend time at Logarithm doing this stuff where I'm able to learn and apply those skill sets to help our customers and our partners.
Good consultative stuff. Thanks, Jake.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into this. Actually, I guess let's slow down a little bit. Mike, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I got a quick question, just so everyone kind of knows what we're doing today, or what you're doing. Can you tell me about something you're learning right now, or any projects you're currently working on?
Yeah, Mike, great question. I'm so happy you asked. Because like I said, continuous learning is critical, I think, especially in security, because it's ever evolving. But also, it's not, we'll talk about this in a little bit. A lot of this is not super advanced or sophisticated stuff. It's the basics. And so learning the basics and applying those in different levels, different operating systems is what I've been thinking a lot about. So what am I learning? What am I working on right now? I have two areas of focus. The first thing, our new CEO at Logarithm recently encouraged everybody to pick up a book. Mine's an ebook, so I'm not going to hold up the book or anything, but it's called The Phoenix Project. Oh, you got it, Mike? Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice and blurry, but nice try.
Sorry.
There we go. Thank you, Vanna White. The Phoenix Project is an interesting book. Oddly enough, I was supposed to read it when I was in college, Mike. I didn't. Don't tell my instructors. But now as a more mature adult in reading it, it's actually been really insightful. And I wish I had read it back then, because it's really taking the idea of software development and applying that to the same ideas as a factory. And how, just like in a factory, you can have single paints of failure and, bottlenecks and things like that. The same thing can happen in engineering, software engineering, or even just IT in general. And so the book has been really interesting to read, to take a step back and apply it to age-old industries and apply that into common things that we're working on today. I'm about 70% through the book right now. So next time we talk, I should be finished. And I'd love to follow up more with that. Just to keep us on track, one of the other things I've been studying a little bit is I'm trying to learn more about AWS cloud environments. And so I actually started a fictitious company. So keep your eyes out. We may be hiring soon. The company is called LogCorp. My whole business model is that we're going to generate logs. Pretty fancy, I know. But the idea here is that I've been spinning up AWS ECS, their version of Kubernetes, learning how to automate that, how to streamline, how to auto scale, things like that. But also how to generate logs, how to capture them, bring them in so they can be monitored and analyzed. So that's what I've been working on. And I have some other projects in the works, Mike, around Terraform, Ansible type stuff. I just want to learn more about the automation and how I can secure it. So that's what I've been focusing on lately.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a lot of good stuff, and it sounds like you're doing the thing where you're RTFMing. So that's great with your book there. So a lot of people don't, but due diligence is great.
Yeah, better read it late than never, right?
That's right. So why don't we go into our first topic? Let's go ahead and just do this here. So we've got a couple topics we want to talk to you about that we kind of read into, did a little bit of research. Just let you guys know what's going on. If you haven't seen these things, we'll go and fill you in. We're happy to jump into these articles and kind of dig a little around these topics to discuss, and we'll bounce back some commentary on those. But Jake, why don't you start with your topic? Looks like you've taken the Lapsus breach that happened over at Okta. Can you tell us about what you found?
Yeah, so full disclosure, I'm not going to focus just on the Okta side of it. Lapsus, they've been breaching a lot of organizations lately. Just looking at the news, T-Mobile was the most recent list, added to their list. But the thing I found interesting is diving into some of the analysis here. So I read a lot about the Okta breach. There's some people on Twitter, Bill DeMarcapi, Mark API, maybe. I don't know how to say his last name, but his Twitter handle. But this guy Mark on Twitter, Bill on Twitter, he posted a lot of interesting insight as they did the analysis on what actually happened at Okta with the Lapsus breach. One of the other things I found really fascinating was the Microsoft write-up. For Microsoft, they don't call it Lapsus, they call it DEV 0537, same group. But that's the term or group name that Microsoft assigned to them. And what I found interesting is kind of taking a step back and say, well, let's understand more about this group. And Krebs on Security had some great insight. First off, did you realize these are 15 to 21-year-olds? So we're not talking to ex-CSA or NSA, engineers or anything
literally
like
that. Kiddies.
These are script kiddies.
No pun intended either.
And maybe they're more sophisticated than that, but everything I'm reading is they're using default out of the box hacking tools to get access. And the thing that I find interesting with that is that means everything that they're using is already known on the internet. It's not brand new exploits. It's not 0 days. They're using just standard Mimikatz, things like that.
It's a little scary because actually it is absolutely scary because you have those ransomware as a service, you have those malware as a service, you have that X as a service, bad actors out there that can simply just hop and click on a website and you're on your way. Whether it's the dark web or you're doing a Google search for that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's great. You pointed that out.
Yeah, and then Krebs on security, he pointed out some of their techniques. And Mike, dust off your notebooks because this isn't new. None of this is new. They're targeting personal emails and phone numbers of the employees. Social engineering, aka phishing, through help desk and customer support employees. And it actually pointed out that they like to target new hires, not yet trained. They don't know the security protocols yet. It's a smart vector. The other thing I found interesting, well, first off, Mike, how would you be interested in a new job? $20,000 a week, easy work. That's all it is, but $20,000 a week. Are you interested?
Hey man, I can moonlight for a little bit. Sounds good.
Right. All they need is your VPN credentials. That's what they're paying for. Lapsus is offering $20,000 a week for access to people's VPN credentials.
It's crazy stuff.
It's absolutely mind-boggling. That's just bribery, right? I mean, it's hard to do training when it says, hey, if somebody approaches you and offers you a large sum of money for login credentials, don't do it. I didn't know we had to define that, but now apparently that's a new tactic. Again, that's not new at all, right? Then one of the last things, that there's two more areas that Brian Krebs called out that I found absolutely phenomenal. Another thing, they're going to the telephone store. They're getting a man in the middle at the telephone store. So when employees of the Microsofts or the Oktas come in, install a rootkit or whatever that they're asking for, getting the employee of the phone store to do this. It's absolutely amazing that these are the tactics they're using. And then the last thing that Brian Krebs pointed out is that they're intruding on the crisis comms. What I mean is that, Okta had a breach, send out an email saying, hey, everybody join this conference call. Lapsus was joining those calls too, getting direct insight from the company, what they're doing, how they're detecting it, what they've found. Just amazing insight.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, first of all, you have to also be in that mindset, or understand that mindset. These are young people who don't understand all the implications behind that, all the repercussions. And of course, you're going to leave a breadcrumb trail for all of the activity you've done, because if it connects to the internet, it can probably be hacked, just like anything. But I think that's preaching to the choir here. Sorry, I'll let you continue.
No, Mike, that's really good input. Just to kind of wrap this up, just to keep us moving forward, Mike, a couple other things that I found absolutely amazing is they use GitHub-based tools to establish persistence. If you look in the logs, they were using Bing, my favorite search engine, for process hacker, for Mimikatz, specific keywords that apparently weren't triggering any alarms on the Okta side. And then, of course, they did have an endpoint detection. They had one of the articles called out that they had FireEye as their endpoint detection on this system that was compromised at Okta. Mike, guess how they defeated this EDR solution?
They guessed. It was a really good guess, right?
Pretty much. They terminated the process. Nothing sophisticated about that. And so I'm not going to say I'm an expert in EDR. I'm not an expert in FireEye. But usually these EDR tools have a way to secure against that. And it makes me wonder if there was some configuration steps that were overlooked. I don't know. I'm not saying with certainty, but it definitely sounds a little bit like that.
Yeah, very interesting. They wouldn't have protections around those your Silences or your SentinelOnes of the world. If your employees know how to do that, I mean, first of all, that's that's a major oversight on the EDR tool, but also you can't just trust that technology is going to do what they say it'll do. You have to verify that. So that's another critical step. A lot of people just kind of just overlook.
It's so true. So true. And there's some very easy and high level things that Microsoft could do, or that Microsoft calls out, that we all can apply. Some of the mitigation steps that they recommend to protect against Lapsus isn't sophisticated. There's a couple things. They're exploiting known CVEs. That's public data, and if your software is exploited, the exploits are out there, and you're just kind of leaving the door open at that point. Also, it's important to note this group, Lapsus, was not trying to be stealth. You even said that a second ago. These guys were leaving crumb trails everywhere and made it really easy to catch in the aftermath. But it's kind of surprising that no one was able to catch that before. It was pointed out that a lot of times, security incidents, they're looking for the long haul, the slow and steady exfiltration, things like that. Lapsus wasn't taking that approach. They were in and out within 6 hours. And, they're the bull in the china shop approach. We want to go in and do as much as we can before we lose that access. And so it shifts gears a little bit. Now we have to think about these temporary accounts and short-term exfiltration attempts rather than the long hauls that we normally are focused on. Thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So, moral of the story, we need to go back to the basics sometimes. The Lapsus attack on Okta, Microsoft, T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and all these guys, it was sheer persistence. They had a targeted account users. They pushed. They kept going. And, you read these articles, there was true persistence going on. They had dossiers on the people they were trying to attack. And so they knew what they were doing. And, at the end of the day, what I'm getting out of this is that, yes, we need security. But we also need training. We need to make sure employees know what to look for and when they should report things that are suspicious so that this entire security organization can be aware. So all in all, hopefully that was kind of an interesting insight, Mike. Lapsus, it's all over the news right now. And so I really didn't want to dive into the high level of, they breached all these guys and here's what they did. No, let's talk a little bit about the dirty. Let's talk about the endpoints being disabled. Let's talk about these open search, search engine queries that they're doing that were red flags that we couldn't catch. I think that's pretty interesting.
No, it's an excellent topic to cover because again, we can't just overlook this as something. They're going to be in a corner somewhere. No, we're talking about a group who's targeting organizations just for the fun of it. 60% of hackers, specifically black hats, will do that. The hacking as part of a thrill. 60% of them. So that's a larger number. Of course, there's the other 40% that are doing it for monetary reasons or notoriety. But at this point, they're doing it largely because it's fun, it's a thrill. So
that's why you do it, right, Mike?
That's why I got my server back here. It's not just mining Bitcoin.
Of course not. All right, Mike, why don't you tell me about the article that you picked?
Yeah, thanks for advancing the slide there. So let's dig into it. And by no means is this anything new, and certainly appreciate Jake's topic. I think it was important to go a little bit deeper into his. I'll be pretty quick on mine. Again, nothing new here, folks. I think this is important to just kind of cover the state of affairs with what's going on there. Definitely a slightly controversial topic, but I feel it's important to understand, hey, what is our government reporting to us, specifically CISA or the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency? It's really critical that you understand, no pun intended there, but these are really awful things that are happening, abroad in Ukraine. But with that comes a lot of bad actors that are doing this in the name of, backing up Russia. In some cases, some of them are doing it as a independent thing or their own mission to undermine operations over there, to hack into systems here. But what I've seen and what I looked into, Jake, was a number of things. So these types of attacks are, specifically DDoS, they're malware, they're cyber espionage, tapping into stuff, tap, listen here, do an Nmap there, do an Nmap here, see what's open, the proverbial tap on the door in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So the interesting things I found out of this were some recent malware were discovered about 10 days ago. It was published on a article I came across, and I have the source in there if you want to look at that. But one's called Pipe Dream, which is a malware specifically designed to target industrial control systems. So again, nothing new, but this is a newer variant of previous ones we've seen. And they also attack SCADA devices or supervisory control and data acquisition devices. And then another one discovered in the wild was called an in-controller, excuse me. It is called that. It's what's actively used for a number of different groups out there. And I'll get into a little bit about the Conti ransomware group who does use this sort of technology. But more research was published last Wednesday that showed Mandiant saying In controller is very likely state-sponsored by Russia, and is comparable to Triton, which was attempted to disable industrial safety systems in 2017, and also an destroyer, which caused a power outage in Ukraine in 2016. Again, these are persistent attacks over time. They're very patient, especially for those state-sponsored attackers and actors out there.
Mike, it's funny. This reminds me a lot like Stuxnet. Maybe that was a successful attack that didn't start in Russia, obviously, but I think it sounds very similar, and they probably took some notes on that and applied it to what they're doing today, huh?
Yeah, and if we go back to that, back in 2010, that took many man-months and many man-years to develop Stuxnet, because it was, in deployment, it's really simple, right? It's just overriding controls and making the centrifuges spin a lot faster than they really should, making them defunct over time, right? So the other thing I looked at, and that's exactly the point, is it's a derivative of Stuxnet because it's directly impacting industrial controls. So let's go ahead and move to the next one. Is the next portion I found, which was CISA is reporting, again, they're the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. They report an increase in attacks over holidays and weekends in 2021. And they're expecting to see that ramped up even more this year, and it progressively gets more intense over time. So
Mike, I just have to call out that, isn't that frustrating? I mean, even this last holiday season, right before New Year's and everything, there's all these security things coming out, and security researchers are getting tired, and it's hard. It's almost like they're picking the worst time possible for us to do this stuff.
Yeah, and certainly if you have any questions, folks on the call or on the webinar here, please pop into the chat room there and ask your questions away, because we do have other things that we covered and a lot of different research that went into this. But we can certainly answer any questions about logarithm as well if you have any there. But we'll certainly wrap it up with a bit of logarithm and what we're doing today. On that note, why is this important for you? Like, okay, what is it, Mike? Why do I care?
Yeah.
Sure, that's understandable. Per CISA, they were very vague when they say this. So this is pulling it directly from their Shields Up page. Is every organization, large and small, must be prepared to respond to disruptive cyber incidents. Again, they did not single out, if you're in fintech, or if you're in just Canadian infrastructure, pipeline or anything like that. No, it's everybody. They're going for the big fish. They're going for the small fish. So it is important. This is why this stuff is important to talk about, and ramp up your security controls and your security practices.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to say, well, I'm a small business. They're not going to target me. Well, they might, because you have money. You have resources they can leverage. Even if it's just like a basic AWS account, now they have resources. They can spin up high-end servers, do password cracking on your bill, because you're a small mom and pop shop that, wasn't going to be attacked. It's easy to cancel yourself out from being in a security risk. But really, we all have a bank account tied to AWS or Azure or whatever, and that's what the attackers need. They need a bank account to pay for their computing. So it makes a lot of sense that everybody could be targeted.
Yeah, and to that point, Jake, thank you. When COVID hit or the pandemic started, it was a free-for-all for a lot of hackers out there. So, while people were working largely in offices before this, it presented a great opportunity for a lot of hackers. Most people's home Wi-Fi network is not enterprise grade. With that, if you have sensitive, information flowing to a home office, that's going to be something that hackers are going to look for. So this goes to prove, yes, our work from home force does have an important need or a drive to, take it upon themselves to be more aware, learn about security controls, and protect the company assets. So,
Mike, for a second, I thought you were going to drop the zero trust idea here. Working from home, untrusted networks. Isn't that the whole philosophy behind that zero trust approach?
That's exactly it. Yeah, and you stole the words out of my mouth. Is exactly the methodology you should be adopting for a lot of organizations. And it's nothing new. Google's, kind of pioneered that. Everyone took notice, and it's, gotten to a good place today. So yeah, good point.
Yeah.
The last bullets I have here for that topic are the framework of in controller has capabilities to disrupt, sabotage, and potentially physical destruction. So just like Stuxnet, like you mentioned earlier, this new malware variant that targets ICS and SCADA systems can do the same thing. And so we're talking about some serious implications here. If you're not aware, someone's already compromised an environment, they're moving to the later stage of the attack lifecycle. And then for industrial organizations, this is similar to what happened to, like I said, Stuxnet, but it's also used to use against enrichment facilities and around. So this is, again, old story, but new variants is what I'm trying to say. And then finally, Russia's retaliation, against the U.S. sanctions and support for Ukraine is going to further escalate these things. That we've seen all these different online gangs and criminals side with Russia just after the invasion. So this is also important to take note and say, well, what am I doing to protect myself? Am I using the MITRE ATT&CK framework? Am I looking at APTs by groups or advanced persistent threats by groups? Those are things that you're going to want to start looking to, folks, especially if you're more the industrial side of the house. Not only just industrial, but anything that has to do with contractors, government agencies, and anything in between.
That's really good insight, Mike. And I think this might be a good opportunity for you to defend or mention that new MITRE technique page that you're just telling me about before the call. Because you're right, MITRE ATT&CK framework is amazing, and it gives you great insight and vision in how you present it. But what about the defender side? What does MITRE have now that they're working on?
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up on my side as well, because if y'all weren't aware, there's obviously, just as Jake mentioned, the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and that's on the attack side. But in beta mode right now, if you go to defend with a 3 for the e.mitre.org, you can simply go and take a look at the framework as it is today to defend, to harden, to detect, isolate, deceive, and evict different threats out there. So really cool stuff. It's obviously in its infancy and its early stages, but it's definitely worth a look to kind of protect yourself, get an idea of what you need to do. I think it's going to evolve into a lot more stance around, okay, who's the bad actors that I need to align to? What sort of vertical am I in? So it's exciting stuff, but you can certainly take a look, and I can drop the link in the chat once we're done here.
Awesome. All right, Mike, let's shift gears a little bit, and let's talk about how we're going to protect or suggest ideas of how we can protect against these types of incidences. So starting with Okta and the Lapsus breach, I kind of mentioned a few things. Right off the bat, we're not looking at 0 days. We're not looking at sophisticated attacks. We're looking at making sure your software and security tools are deployed correctly, that they're hardened, that things like default passwords have been changed. A lot of it is that type of stuff. But then there's also the other big portion of end user training. Are your new hires getting alerted that they may be attacked, that they may be singled out by attackers in an attempt to exploit things? Then there's also big things too, like when you have a help desk employee reset a password, what verification steps are you doing? And you think about some larger organizations, like 10, 15 employee organization, that's a lot easier to know who's who and things like that. But when you have 500, 600, 1,000 or more employees, how do you verify that that's really an employee calling into the help desk? You got to think through things like that. And then, looking at the high picture here too, are you bringing in those IAM logs like Okta or Duo or whatever vendor you use? Are you bringing those logs in to have visibility? Obviously, Logarithm integrates with those types of vendors. Maybe we're biased, right? But, that we know this. But the part that's important is bring those logs in and correlate that with other activities. Microsoft, they detailed about how the Lapsus group would come in, create an administrator account, and then remove all the other administrators from that domain admin level or an enterprise admin level. Are we detecting that? Do we know as soon as that happens what happened? Getting those types of things in place. But then the other thing too, they're paying for VPN credentials, Mike. You know what that means? We're going to have some land login issues, or distance login issues, I should say. Logarithms Cloud AI can help with doing UEBA type of analysis. It can detect when we have somebody logging in multiple locations around the world. in an unrealistic number or time frame. And, it's a great way to catch stuff like that. I think Microsoft's documentation is amazing in terms of understanding things you should do to help protect yourself from Lapsus. So I'd highly recommend reading up Microsoft's write-up on it. What thoughts do you have, Mike? I think I covered most of the Okta stuff, but is there anything, or the Lapsus stuff, is there anything that you wanted to call out there?
No, I think that's great. So yeah, when we, like you mentioned, Logarithm does have capabilities around that to kind of investigate and detect, respond against those sorts of attacks. We just actually got off an internal call that illustrated the power of cloud AI and said Logarithm to understand unexpected behavior around users, looking at possible ransomware compromise, and then shutting down patient zero. Those are things that we provide today. But enough of that. I guess I'll take another swig of the proverbial Kool-Aid.
He's drinking more of that Kool-Aid. Yeah. All right, now that you're refilled, give us some ideas of how an organization can protect themselves from Russian hacking groups, whether state sponsored or not.
Yeah. So on that note, yes, let's talk about. Okay, great, Mike. That was a lot of stuff. You certainly know about MITRE attack, and I know about MITRE defend. Great. But the other ways we're looking at how to protect yourself against those industrial grade attacks. First of all, you got to patch your systems. Patch Tuesdays for Windows. Update your Linux repositories and your directories and files for Linux, and then automatic updates for Mac OS. I have those all done right now. Something that we offer to look for these sorts of vectors, attack, types are through MISNet, which is our NDR or network detection and remediation platform. That contextualizes hosts and users to refine network metadata to understand network threats and more detail behind those threats. So there's a lot of stuff in there. If you have any questions on that, please let me know. It does use an IDS and IPS engine in the background to scan all the payloads on the wire. And then it uses unassisted machine learning to kind of filter down all those alerts to something more manageable instead of getting 30,000 alerts on a single static signature. And then finally, GA3 fingerprinting for SSL. So we don't need to decrypt any encrypted traffic. That's not necessary for us. It makes it a lot faster, a lot less resources used when you don't do that. So we can actually compare to peers and the traffic that's used, even if it's over SSL. And then next, a few more points on that, how to protect yourself. This is coming directly from CISA as well. Implement and ensure robust network segmentation between IT and ICS networks. So it's important to use your port trunking and utilize your VLANs, utilize your protect port, and use if you're using Cisco, stuff like that. And then of course, enforce your multi-factor authentication when users authenticate to a system. That's nothing new. Again, you can go as far as you want there, but maybe even a thumb key usage is probably more important for those more critical systems.
Yeah, I'll throw out the Microsoft write-up calls out physical multi-factor authentication devices the best security, not using your phone. But if you are using your phone, don't use SMS-based authentication for MFA. Instead, it should be an app, Microsoft Authenticator, Google Authenticator, things like that they can't intercept it. You can't do a SIM swap and get that multi-factor authentication code. Use MFA, but also use it right. And then to Mike's point, just barely, on the top level, ultra secure, it shouldn't be a regular, you should get a key fob. You shouldn't be using just a telephone for your MFA.
Yeah, no, that's a solid point. Love that little insert there because, again, for the large majority of users, standard multi-factor authentication works. But for these more serious attacks, these more in-depth attacks and APTs, you're going to want that layer of security where it comes down to the physical portion.
Yeah.
And then the last two bullet points I had, Jake, were the need to manage the creation, modification, use, and permissions associated with privileged accounts. So again, you got to watch your admin accounts. You got to watch your MySQL accounts. You got to watch your root users on Linux. You got to make sure those are reported to some sort of central system like a SIM. We offer that as well. And then finally, closely monitor the use of RDP. This is something that we've seen an uptick in. It's even happened to us in our demo platform. I've actually seen Russia-owned IP addresses come to our demo platform on a live demo with a prospect. So These are all real things. Just, again, nothing new, but it's going up, and this activity is only going to keep skyrocketing.
No, that's great insight. And, I mean, there's also obvious mitigations too. Palo Alto firewalls, they make it really easy to say, hey, block Russian IPs, things like that. And then, the other side too is, what about public VPNs? The Lapsus group, they pushed NordVPN. All of their stuff was coming out of NordVPN. So Microsoft made it, kind of obvious. Well, hey, if it's NordVPN, there's a high risk tied to it, and so starting to have tooling that can assist in that type of stuff is very beneficial. Mike, we're moving right through in terms of time. So let's take a break and pass things over to Sierra. I believe she has a couple poll questions for us.
Certainly.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Please take a moment, everyone, to complete the following polls. Remember, if you complete all 3, you'll receive free exclusive content after the webinar concludes. It's just 3 short questions. All right, so the poll is out right now. I'll give you about 20 seconds, or even less.
Wish we had like the Jeopardy music right now.
I was about to say it, but I was like, I think that was played out, Jake. You're going to need a new joke.
We'll come up with a different song. Mike, as they're starting to wrap up these polls, I had a question for you.
Sure.
You kept talking about CISA, C-I-S-A.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me like a 30-second rundown what they are and what benefit they have to me?
Yeah, so if you're looking at the verticals, any organizations in the industrial verticals, this is going to be a website you're going to want to go to. So your energy resources for any consumer grade organizations that deliver goods like that or services like that, any sort of water pump systems that are maintained by organizations, anything that's critical infrastructure, maybe power lines, or maybe you have an electrical grid you maintain at a local county or on behalf of the government. This is where you're going to want to come to understand, how do I protect myself? What's going on today? Am I being targeted, towards ransomware, stuff like that. So if you work in any capacity of infrastructure, you're going to want to come here to learn, how can I take care of myself? What's going on? And give me the rundown on a very specific group, and then finally get alerts and tips and submit those tips to the government.
Yeah, so I'll just throw out in the CSIA world, I get emails from them that are extremely helpful. That they'll let me know the top critical CVEs that have just been released. They also give updates in, hey, Apache just released major patches or known CVEs for these following products, and they do this regularly. They actually just did some updates to their notification system where I feel like it's a lot more streamlined, and I'm getting a lot more clear and actionable items. Assuming that you use the products that they're notifying on, which obviously every organization won't do that, but it is an awesome resource. If you aren't leveraging it, I would highly recommend checking them out. Get on their mailing list so you can get those updates. And it's just maybe 1 email a day, sometimes 2, and it's not even always an email a day too. So great resource. I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah, and one more little plug on this is we recently did a webinar that helps you kind of identify these threats and look at those on your enterprise and your organization. So we did a webinar recently that shows the capabilities around SentinelOne and Logarithm to not only just detect, investigate, and kind of take action on it, but automate the remediation around that stuff. So if you're interested in looking at that, I can send the webinar that we did on Bright Talk recently.
Awesome. Well, with that, I think we can hang out for a minute. If there's any questions, you can post that in the Q&A section of Bright Talk. But otherwise, Mike, maybe we can go ahead and start kind of closing things up here. I'll just throw out that security's finicky, right? It's incredibly easy, but also incredibly hard. It's incredibly important, but also incredibly frustrating. And it's a love-hate relationship I have with it. And I'll just say that at the end of the day, every organization has to improve their security posture. And I think the key is not saying I want to have zero trust 100% implemented, but to make those small incremental improvements. This plays into that Phoenix project. We can't boil the ocean in one go around. We're going to need to slowly introduce new security controls, new features that protect our customers, our employees, our data, and do it regularly. It's not do it once and you're done for a lifetime. It's something that you're going to have to continue to revisit and reevaluate. And at the end of the day, it's simple security posture requirements here. We're not telling you need EDR software. You can use free software for a lot of this stuff, but you need to have that central repository. You need to have a way to control the updates. You need to be able to make sure your software is updated. You need to do training. It's a lot of basic stuff, but as you do that, it should start to really help the organization mature. And then once you get to there, then you can find the next step and you can continue to progress. So, my hope is that the takeaway from today's call is we're all at risk, and let's start finding small and easy steps to make improvements to our security posture.
And but by no means is Jake paid by the publisher for the Phoenix project. He just had some good takeaways out of the book. So great job in informing us there. But I think that wraps up the polls. So I think we're good there.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, I've had a lot of fun today. I hope you did too, Mike.
We are having fun.
We're having a good time. All right. With that, I think we'll pass it back to Sierra for some to wrap things up for us.
All right. Thanks, Jake and Mike. Thanks again, everyone, for joining today's webinar. We hope you found it valuable. And if you think of any questions about what we discussed today, feel free to email us at info@logarithm.com or connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn by searching Logarithm. Also, if you have any topics you'd like us to discuss in part 2 of the In the News series, send them over to social.media@logarithm.com. Part 2 of this webinar series will be on May 17th, and you can register by clicking the resources tab on your screen. Thanks again, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. All right, bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks,
everyone. Stay safe.